put up with that talk, but here we are. So, wanting, waiting, hoping. Over and over again, we see the main characters in Austen's novels, women and men, in this extended narrative state of romantic, even sexual longing and desire. Elizabeth Bennet realizing, is it too late? That Darcy is exactly the right man for her. Perhaps Austen Pemberley, too. Captain Wentworth, full of torments, because he finally realizes, is it too late? That he has never stopped loving Anne Elliot, and now she appears to be marrying someone else. And Mr. Darcy, right, continually troubled by his unconquerable desire for Elizabeth Bennet, that famous beauty with her fine eyes, attempting to discipline his sexual longing with exaggerated class consciousness and finding that this duty to his kind is no match for his overwhelming desire. But is it too late? And poor Anne Elliot, so sure that it is indeed too late for her, that her dutiful obedience to the persuasion of others has, as a young girl, cost her forever the satisfaction of married love with one. So much waiting, wanting, hoping. In fact, Martin Amis, of all people, that bad boy novelist from the 1960s and onward, reports that at the age of 14, he got no more than 20 pages into Pride and Prejudice before he besieged his stepmother to tell him right that minute whether or not Elizabeth and Darcy got married. I needed to know that information, he said, more than I needed anything in my life. In fact, even now, as I open that book, I feel a panic of unsatisfied expectation. In fact, the famous wet shirt scene in the 1996 BBC, how much sexuality has been the power and popularity. It made Colin for his whole career. And indeed, it seems that every fan fiction cannot wait to get these characters in bed, right? Especially Darcy and Elizabeth here in Death Comes to Pemberley. To what end, then, all this young love, this sexual yearning over and over again? How do we account for the navigation of desire in this landscape of constricted womanhood in the 19th century, of temptations facing privileged men? How does Austen use the novel to walk her readers through the treacherous but exciting moral waters of sex? One important strategy is actually to depict the unusually intimate, stable, and egalitarian marriages in older role model characters, the Gardiners, and especially Admiral and Mrs. Croft. These unions provide kind of stark relief to those lifeless parental marriages, as well as those untamed desires of the young lovers. Indeed, these alternate marriages sort of model the rational and balanced, but loving and sexually alive partnerships first championed by Mary Wollstonecraft, the writer, the philosopher, and early feminist. Vindication of the Rights of Women is Wollstonecraft's best-known philosophical tract, with a famous line that Mrs. Croft actually echoes in the book Persuasion, which chides Frederick Wentworth, saying, "Women want to be treated as rational creatures." Letters in Sweden, her other very famous book, less well known than it should be now, shows Wollstonecraft herself sort of embodying and questioning this sexual ideal of intimacy and equality in marriage. Of course, the traditional genre of romance has always been about the narrative expectation of sanctioned, consummated love in marriage. But what's new in Austen's age is the Romantic era emergence of the freely choosing individual, the freely feeling individual. So her novels, therefore, allow readers to enter into that same fictional space the characters do. How best do we read the world? How best do we judge rightly about character and intentions of an attractive other? What would you do with the white hot passion? Well, one is avoid poetry, okay? Bennet, Captain Bennet, almost as bad as the sexual licentiousness of characters like Wickham, Bennet's indulgence in Byronic poetry keeps him from both right action and right judgment. And of course, Byron himself, famously mad, bad, and dangerous to know, is the counterexample to both Wollstonecraft and Austen and their ideal of egalitarian marriage. Of course, he champions male transgressions and license with a public performance of self that actually has outlasted his poetry. But that bad boy Byronic fantasy is a dead end for men as well. And wise advice to Bennet is instead perhaps he read a little more prose, meaning particularly the essays of Samuel Johnson, I would argue, works that moderate worldly knowledge with the pleasures of virtue. So waiting, wanting, and hoping are in reality the disciplining and deferring of sexual love that define true redemption in Austen's novels, even more so than overt religion. One scholar calls it erotic faith. And unruly passions, of course, are the historical culture and cultural background of Austen's own life and her novels. The French Revolution's wild events are playing out almost within sight of England's shores. And writers and readers inevitably are responding to those cataclysms, seeing both promise and danger in unbridled emotion. But Wollstonecraft's arguments about rational marriage have political claims too. They're about the progress of the nation. And in the same way, the realist novel of Austen helps create and sustain a community of meaning that holds the nation together. So, by promoting right action and not too much poetry and feeling, Austen puts redemptive faith in novels themselves. Loss can be overcome, wrongs are righted through the love of the man and the woman who belong together. And now, let's have a kiss.